Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here with you.
It's a pleasure to have you here, Jonathan, to talk about what you do.
Thank you very much.
Well, actually, let's start there. Let's talk about what is it that you do these days. Actually, you have a lot of experience. You've done a lot of things in this real estate, commercial real estate industry. Why don't you walk us through a little bit through your story and then take us to what you do today?
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to do that. So, I've actually been in real estate pretty much my entire life. My family has been heavily involved in real estate and real estate acquisitions, land development, redevelopment type projects. And so, from a very young age, we actually have been heavily involved with that out west as well as actually here in the Midwest. So, I did spend some time out west with a large national home builder. We were building about 40,000 homes a year, and I was actually a director for them. And so that gave me a lot of experience as far as actually land acquisition, mergers, purchasing, estimating, all of those types of things. So when you are there in Los Angeles, you get exposed to a lot of the best and the brightest and best practices. And so I think for me personally, it really was just an incredible journey to be able to give back. And so in my unique situation, I had a special needs son and we were not finding the services that we needed for him. And having grown up here in the Kansas City area, we actually relocated back to this area. And so I was able to kind of take everything that I'd learned out west and to be in a position to implement them here locally. And as a result of that, I've been heavily involved in all kinds of basically niches as well as actually every asset class. And so I think that's one of the unique things of being a broker, being in a position to manage others and to kind of see trends is you never want to be putting all of your eggs in one basket. I think that's one of the things that I have really tried to incorporate into my personal career is if I'm not actually pushing myself or testing myself with new avenues or looking at new things, then you really are kind of becoming more and more antiquated. For me, I've coached my kids and other kids. And so we actually call them 5-tool players. And in baseball terms, that just means it's somebody who is all around that no matter the circumstance, you can actually put that individual in and they have the cognitive ability, they have the intellect, they have the smarts, if you will, to jump in and to do great things. And so that really was a core belief that I had growing up, as well as actually just kind of in my personal life. And so it really worked out great. It was one of those things where I love to network. I'm a people person. And so for me, it was really very easy to go and to deal with lots and lots of different types of people from different backgrounds. I had an opportunity to live in South America for 2 years. And so as a missionary down there. And so I was in a situation where I could actually learn Spanish. So for me, as a cross-cultural type of environment, I have found that my ability to interact with others has just exponentially grown. Fast forward, I now have been in commercial real estate and residential real estate and land acquisition and mergers. I've been in multifamily and I'm just over 30 plus years. So quite a while.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
That's awesome. There is a lot of to unpack there. Wow.
Yeah.
What years were you in LA? I'm just curious.
So I was actually in LA and that would have been in the 90s.
Do you
Yeah.
think Florida is the next California when it comes to growth?
I absolutely do. And I think that's one of the things I want to touch on today is as you actually look at one of the market segments that I'm heavily involved in right now, which is self-storage. Migration patterns are absolutely critical as an investor, as a buyer, as a seller. You have to always be looking at migratory patterns. Much like, again, when you have an oversupply, then people will move because now you have a situation where things get cheaper. When you actually have the converse, you come back and you say, we don't have enough of something, then obviously there's going to be a big boom where people will do that. One of the greatest things that I've seen is you actually look at all the economics, when you look at the political, when you look at all the other contributing factors, Florida has all the right things. It has all the right things, not just as a retirement state, but it truly has the tax structure, It has all the financing available. It has all the different instruments by which somebody could actually come in and do very, very well in really whatever part of Florida that you want to be in. So it is very, as we say, it's a very user friendly state.
Mhm.
It's development friendly. Obviously, there's small municipalities that your barrier of entry is always harder, but we love barrier of entry because if you have barriers, that means that you have a unique, one of a kind product. If you can be successful in finding that piece of ground, if you can find that home, if you can find that building, then what you've done is that you've overcome the greatest obstacles to actually make a lot of money.
And also, the harder it is, the less people are going to
That's right.
infiltrate as well, because it's
That's
just
right.
hard, right?
Yeah. Don't go for the low lying fruit. In investing in real estate, people get so caught up in the quick flip. They look at the quick money. The bottom line is what has made me successful, our company that's successful, all of the ventures that I've been involved with is we like hard. That's our thing. If it's not hard, then that means that anybody can do it and we shouldn't be there. Yeah. If we know that it's
Beautiful.
hard, if we know it's hard and we know that again that it's going to require sacrifice and time
Yeah.
and extra effort, then guess what? The dividends will be there. The payoff is going to be there. And I think that's not only for our own personal life, our spiritual journey, but the fact is that it can also incorporate itself into our investments. If something is too good to be true, it typically is.
I
If
totally
somebody
agree with you.
comes with, yeah, if somebody comes with something and says, hey, you know what? I've got this great deal. The first thing I do is how did you find it? What is it specifically again of how I can actually lose my money? And most people don't think that way.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, great. Tell me. Time is money.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, when every single facet of your business is requiring your time and your money, then those become very, very critical. People give Kevin Leary a really, really hard time on Shark Tank because, he talks about money as if it's truly an entity.
Correct.
And I think when you actually begin to look at it, you did a lot to actually earn that money. So why would you just give it away freely? Why would you give it to not do the appropriate due diligence and the steps necessary to make sure that there is a strong return on investment?
Totally agree with you. We
Yeah.
speak the same language. So
Yeah.
I want to transition into warehousing. How did you get
Okay.
into this industry and why?
Yeah. So one of the things that again has always been critical is the need for manufacturing, the need for individuals to put things. We saw a trend starting probably 12 years ago where there just was not a really organized way in which people were actually coming in. Municipalities didn't really want self storage. They didn't want warehouses. They saw them really as kind of, oh, those are those other people, or those are scenarios where, you got to go down an old country road and that's the mom and pop. And, it just wasn't done. What I love about what the industry has really done, and that's through the Self Storage Association, they really have educated not only owners, but they have come in and truly started to create a culture that says we have an image problem. We have to go into these municipalities and actually give them a retail experience through our due diligence, through again, all of the polling that we did and groups where we brought in think tanks, everybody came back and said, who is our number one consumer of self storage, of warehouse space? And number one was single women with children.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two was our military. They were moving around. They were doing a lot of different things. They needed to have a safe, secure, well lit, well protected, climate controlled environment so that when they went away or when they were doing different things, they could come back and there wasn't mold and there wasn't this and there wasn't that. The bottom line is they needed to have a space that actually created value for them. As it relates to the retail experience, if you're a single woman and you have children in the car with you, the last thing you want to be doing is driving into an area that's dark,
Mm.
that's not well lit, that isn't easy access, that allows, where there isn't cameras, where you're not actually kind of doing things like that. And so the industry really had to change. And I think when you actually look at the overall evolution over, the last 10, 15
Mhm.
years. The bottom line is that you start to see a much more user-friendly environment. So as a result of that, obviously a large group of us said, this is an asset class that is being underutilized. And this is something that you can come in and unlike multifamily, you're in a situation where you just either have an on-site manager, but you don't have to deal with the day-to-day problems of pipe breaking, toilets plugged, roofs coming off, doing all these things, door hinges, everything that is problematic for a landlord. So that was number one.
Yeah.
Number two is
Mhm.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Number two is that you're in a situation where most people would come in and they would just drop their stuff off and 6 months, 3 months would turn into a year. 1 year would turn into 2 years. And so it became a cultural scenario where I feel like I have an additional garage in Florida and in other places around the country. There's no basement. Where am I going to as I'm accumulating things that I don't want to get rid of if I have toys or I have got an exotic car or I've got basically a classic car. I want to have a place where I can actually go that's safe, sound, has got great things about it. And I can go and I can have that experience. I can clock the door, I can walk away, and I don't even have to think about it. And I think when you actually look at that type of self-service type of an environment, that's really what was the driving force behind what made self-storage truly effective. As population grows, as migration increased, as people began to come back into the city centers, all of a sudden you actually have a demand. People are saying, we got to put our stuff somewhere. Well, so then people said, well, how big? I mean, we can go out or we can go up. And then people said, well, it's not good enough to just have a drive up where, you can just one level. We want to be in a position to maximize the return on investment because the ideal place is actually in a city center. It's close to where retail is. You want to repurpose a Walmart, a Toys R Us, places that have gone out of business, taking that shell and repurposing it. So all of a sudden, there became a real functionality behind self storage. And it really led to what the boom is today. Currently, self storage is the number one asset class, bar none. It outperforms industrial, it outperforms multifamily, it gives you consistent revenue. And those are the elements that I think that when you start looking at the bigger picture, we wanted to be a part of that. So anyway, to your point, I actually got heavily involved in self-storage when I was actually a contractor for the Catholic Church.
Mhm.
And I was calling on a piece of ground that was actually in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And the individual that just happened to sell the property adjacent to it was Monty Spencer. Monty is the CEO of the Storage Acquisition Group. And he and I hit it off. What started off as just an innocent broker opinion of value, just trying to do this. This was something that was donated to the church, wanted to be in a position that we could give a valuation for that, turned into a lifelong type friendship and partnership with him to make and create this storage acquisition group. We have one client, and that is Prime Storage, and they are our buyer. We work exclusively for a single buyer. And as a result, we go and we do very well at it. And so it's been very, very successful. And if you look at the reports and all the different things, Prime Self Storage is the number one private equity owner of self storage across the United States. And as we expand into Europe, as we expand into Canada, as we expand into Central and South America, then that number is only going to get larger.
Mina, I had an interesting experience the other day. I was showing properties to a family with 2 kids, and we had 10 to see. After viewing about half, the family was getting pretty hungry, and they really just wanted to continue the other day.
So what did you do?
I went to my car and pulled out a bag of delicious Rickey Jerky. They loved it so much they were able to continue our day without any issues. All the ingredients are 100% natural, plus every strip is seasoned, marinated, and smoked by hand to give you the best experience and slap you back into the gear. But I need to buy some more.
Oh, just head over to rickysjerky.com and use the discount code Decode REI for 15% off your first order.
So whether you're a busy real estate agent or just looking for mouth-watering snack on the go, Ricky Jerky got you covered.
I wanted to touch on the number one on your first thing that you said, which is who is the biggest consumer for self storages, and is women, single women with children. And I
Right.
guess that changes a lot of things for me, understanding that is number one customer, because
Right.
now we can create a product where they are comfortable and truly just happy with it. It's not the usual. We used to think that people just buy and buy and buy. Americans just buy and buy and buy, and they
Right.
just need a place to put it. No, there is change of markets. People need to
Right.
downsize. People die. People want to upsize, and they don't want to get rid of some things. I mean, there is so much going on in people's life that they do need a little bit of extra space to put something in there that they don't want to
Right.
sell or get rid of. So that's number one.
Right.
Number two, this self, that is incredible that you have one client that you work for. I think that is fascinating because that
Yep.
just gives me this sense of order, and it's an organized, structure business. And it really takes away a lot of the headache. It's like one person that you're working for, and that's it. We know what he wants, and then you just go and get it for him. So I love that. Now, the other thing I wanted to say about that, South America, really?
Yeah.
Tell me about
Yeah.
that. I'm from Mexico. I never really heard of self storage.
Well, so yeah, so I've actually obviously spent time in Central and South America, and so believe it or not, there's actually self storage everywhere, and so it's one of those dynamics when you start looking at a corporate structure, recognize that the number one demand, which was dealing with paper. So when you actually deal with records, when you start looking at paper, when you look at the pharmaceutical industry, those are all components of what are actually driving inter type, commerce. And so I think one of the elements that really started coming together with industry and looking at the commercial component, that's where self-storage really went. So in South America, in Central America, you're not only dealing with a population, but you're also dealing with commerce. And so what happens with that commerce is that if individuals have a place where they have to keep records, or pharmaceutical reps where you actually are sending large bulk into a specific market, you have to have a secure place for that. So what's interesting is the self-storage business truly has modified itself to the demands of whatever marketplace they're in. So for example, I'll bring you back here to the US and then I'll take you down to South America. Right now, direct to consumer is critical. And so what we're seeing is we're actually seeing in small towns, places like FedEx, places that again that deliver packages, all of those types of things, they need a half place or a distance halfway to the consumer. So they have these massive warehouses. They'll take all of that products, all those mailings, all those different things, and they're actually using self-storage now where they actually can do that as they go direct to consumer. So you now, if you can imagine, you've got your guy that comes and picks it up. He gets it out of the storage unit, locks it up, fills up his truck. He then can go right into town. And that whole night, somebody else filled up that unit. The exact same thing is happening in South America. You actually have individuals that, again, during COVID, it really revolutionized everything that was going on in our industry because people needed to have no contact. They needed to actually still get products and services, and yet they needed to be in a position to do it in a very safe way. And so by doing this, they have streamlined that. As it relates to pharmaceuticals, well, pharmaceutical reps can no longer actually have all of their samples at their house or in their car. They have to actually go to basically a safe area. So self-storage facilities have modified certain parts of their facilities, and they now actually have a four stop or 4 alarm type way so that they actually can get individuals in. They get their products, they have to check out, they do all these different things, and it's all climate controlled. So when you start looking at the grander picture, you now start to cross over cultural differences. You start looking at the demands of what a global economy truly does but you have to have somewhere to actually put it because those products and services aren't necessarily part of a supply chain that is consistent, or maybe it is consistent. And so self storage allows that opportunity.
One more thing, Lily, and then you can say something. Last night, I was talking to a couple that came to our house for a minute, and he was saying, I started 3 years ago. I moved from Virginia, I believe it was, to Florida. I rented a storage. I was paying $60. And he says, I finally sold everything, gave it away because it went up to 210. That is
Yeah.
telling us that there is a strong market for it. How
Yeah.
far do you think it's going to go, Jonathan? I mean, how much storage do we need?
Well, I think again, and that's really from an investor and from a developer standpoint. When you're already looking at it, we look at it very critical. We come in and we say, and I'll put my hands up here. So there's basically there's point zero, and then you have your 1, 3, and 5 mile radius. And so we actually have, thank goodness for all of the intelligence that is out there, we have the ability to come in and to truly target in those radiuses exactly what the square foot per capita is. Some people may say, what in the world is that? What does that have to do with anything? Well, the population density has everything to do with how much square footage you can actually put into a specific location. And that specific location then draws out the demand. Now, obviously, there's offshoots of that if you have RV and boat storage, or if you have a small town that maybe only has one way to get in and one way to get out. There's offshoots of that. But by and large, when you actually look at those radiuses, you're now getting positioned. Now, because of the way that computers are and because the way that programmers are today, they're in a position to come in and say, we actually, again, can raise the rates because there's no other places that have any spaces available. We can take the rates up. And so they scrape that off and they come up and they call a street rate is what it's called. There's market rate, street rate. So I walk in off the street. Well, how much is it going to be? It's going to be $210 today. So you typically do that around a 10 by 10. And so again, when you start doing the math, you want to, again, as an investor, you're looking for those opportunities where you can actually see migration coming to your area, into your space. You have consistency because there's nothing worse as an investor when you don't have even flow production, when you don't have consistency, and when you actually have bottlenecks. You always want to have demand. If you have 100%, when people come up to me and say, I'm 100% full, I say, then how come you haven't raised the rates? Because in the long run, if you actually do the economics on it, the fact of the matter is that you should wanting to be at 85% because guess what? That means that you have raised your rates. You have the available units. People come in. I'm going to go back to what you said, Mina. It's life events. In this life, life happens. There's nothing we can do about it. And as life happens and we have life events, we have to have alternatives and we have to have solutions. What self-storage does is it provides that opportunity. It provides that avenue by which you can actually come in and actually create and do great things. So we are a service provider. We're looking at a scenario here where we are helping people with life events. If I may,
Yeah.
just 2 weeks ago, I was working with an elderly couple. They said, you know what, Jonathan, we have all this stuff and our kids are at an age where they're not really ready for it. What do you think we should do? This was really nice stuff. They paid a lot of money for it. For them, it represented, as you walked for their beautiful home, it represented a significant equity position. These were not cheap couches and cupboards and countertops. And I mean, everything about it was top notch. So the bottom line is that they didn't want to be in a position to have that estate sale. They said, you know what? Why would we get pennies on the dollar when we could actually give this to our children? Now, obviously, if you talk to the children, some said, no way, I don't want that. But as parents, they wanted to be in a position to support their children. And so they said, you know what? Don't think about it right now. I know that your apartment's too small for anything large. Let's just put it in storage. And so that was where a lot of people are having that life event. They're downsizing. They're wanting to be in a position where they can go to a maintenance provided villa.
Can you tell us what makes so special the TSAC company from all the other companies that call up these warehouses?
Yeah, I would love to. One of the unique selling propositions that we tell all of the individuals that we encounter is that we have been doing this for well over, 10 years. This is something that we know. We have perfected the art of being in a position to facilitate and really understand what market valuations are. We offer a free service. Some people aren't ready to sell, but they'd like to know what their value is. And so that's something that we offer as a free assessment of value. The second thing is that is a huge part of putting things together is we do not actually charge a commission
Mm.
for when we buy the actual unit. And so again, if that's something that, somebody says, "Oh, well, are you calling me for a listing?" We're not calling for a listing. We have a single buyer. We want to purchase off market facilities. We want to be in a position that we can actually have a direct conversation between you, the seller, and our buyer. And what we do is we facilitate that. We're not expecting you as the seller to incur whatever fee structure that you have in mind, because what we do know is that as this asset class has continued to get more and more hotter, there's going to be lots and lots more brokerages that are going to be calling on them and saying, "I have a buyer." Well, actually, I don't have a buyer. I'm looking for a listing. And so now all of a sudden that business model has to change because all of a sudden they're saying, "Well, what's the valuation?" And then the commission. One of the elements that, again, as you talked about, the storage acquisition group is at every national show. We attend state shows. We have a brand that really is impeccable because what we have done is been in a position to go and represent individuals around the United States. And as we go into Canada and these other areas, we are doing the exact same thing. And I think it's that integrity. Integrity is truly one of the things that, as a professional, we want these individuals to feel like it is a win-win type of a transaction, that they're truly getting what it is that the value is worth. As we see interest rates increase, we now are seeing values start to drop. And people don't understand that. They're like, "Wait a minute, 6 months ago, it was worth this much. And now you're saying it goes down." Well, as the cost of funds go up,
Mhm.
then obviously the value of the property goes down in a investment type of a scenario.
Got it. So what I'm hearing from you, it's like you guys providing this white glove service to the seller. It's
That's
very
correct.
unique and it's very private and confidential type of a transaction.
Right. That's right.
And okay, so our listeners are usually people that are in the real estate investment space.
Yeah.
How can they find you if they have a storage that they like to get an offer on, or if they know somebody that is getting ready to exit that and going to somewhere else?
Yeah. We have a website. It is thestorageacquisitiongroup.com. You can actually look that up on the internet. You can reach me at 913-660-8816. If you would like to send me an email, I can be reached at jcutler@thestorageacquisitiongroup.com. And I'm sure that y'all will post that or put my bio up there. You can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook. So feel free to reach out through social media. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. And certainly, we're always looking forward to getting to know new people. Even if you're not ready today, we know that, again, that some people are ready in 6 months, in 1 year, and we can help you with that process.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to have you. I want to hear more and more and more, but we do limit ourselves to about half an hour of something. But
Yeah.
this was excellent. A lot of value, a lot of things I didn't know. And yeah, self storage is it's the bomb. Not literally, but yes, it's great.
Yeah, we love our
Yeah.
stuff. What can I say? Thank you, JC, for
That's right.
coming and explaining everything to us, especially about the TSAG company and everything what it has to offer. And we're probably going to do a follow-up interview, hopefully with Monty and Heatherly. So keep on listening to us.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you very much.
Bye.